Welcome to Above Replacement Radio. I am your host, Chris Gianta. I might be becoming a bad baseball fan who can't enjoy the romantic things because of advanced statistics. 15 years from now, I want to be on the early baseball committee. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran.
I literally have the Fangraphs hoodie, the baseball reference t-shirt, just repping some stats, you know what I'm saying?
It's not necessarily Hall of Fame. It's not necessarily above average, but we can guarantee you we are better than just the standard replacement level college sophomore.
And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well. You and I are both on spring break, of course. You were just in California. I'm currently in Florida. I've been catching some riveting spring training baseball. Really, we're at the peak of interesting spring training baseball. There's really no other types of baseball going on. It's what the people want to see, and that's what I've been taking in during this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, it's not always, with spring training, not always the best players are going to get featured, but you always know they're going to play those first like 5-6 innings. So I'm so happy you can see the best out there in the MLB.
Yeah, especially right now in mid-March, where we're at the point of spring training where all the best players are there and they're not anywhere else.
Yeah.
And they're all, and I got to see, the Washington Nationals 2 days in a row. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah, really. What more can you ask for with that? It's you talk about a team that's won a World Series in the last 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, I got to see three teams. I got to see the New York Mets, the Nationals twice, and then the Cardinals. So, I mean, I'm talking, I got to see Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Edwin Diaz, Joey Meneses, Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Tommy Edman, Lars Nootbaar, Adam Wainwright. They were all at spring training, and I got to see all of them.
Yes. I mean, when you're going to MLB spring training, you're trying to see the best of the best, and that's
Absolutely.
what you get to do.
Yeah, especially in this year specifically.
When
there isn't anything else, for sure.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No lockout.
Lockout. Yeah, no.
It's great. But yeah. The World Baseball Classic is going on. So there is for the casual viewer, it's great, but I mean, I guess it does take away from the experience just slightly. When you're watching it spring training. Daniel has some family down at West Palm Beach, where around the complex of where the Astros and Nationals share a complex, or are they
correct? And then also
close?
about 30 minutes away is where the Cardinals and Marlins share a complex.
Yep.
In Jupiter.
Yeah, I love to see that. Yeah, the Marlins, Sandy Alcantara, Pablo,
yep,
or Luis
Arraez. Yeah,
that is funny. I
mean the Astros. You got guys like Jose Altuve. You got guys like Jeremy Pena, Framber Valdez.
Yeah,
Christian Javier.
Yep.
Ryan Presley.
Just absolute stars.
That are in West Palm Beach right now.
In West Palm Beach. I mean, I guess some of them are in Florida right now, just not.
Yeah, not that part of it.
Not on the spring training complexes. So yeah, the WBC up and running. What have you been able to catch over this past week or so of action?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a few of the games. I haven't been too available, but I watched the opener, which was Cuba versus Netherlands at like 11 at night. That was a lot of fun. I haven't gotten to see Team Japan, unfortunately. They played all their games at like 6 a.m.
Yeah.
And hey, I'll be able to see them because they went 4-0 in the pool round, so they'll be fine. Their team is insane, by the way. I think they have 7 guys with an OPS over 1,000 in the classic.
Mm-hmm.
Shohei Ohtani has like a 1,600 OPS, something crazy like that. Did you see that thing where Ohtani hit a 448-foot homer and everyone in the stands passed the ball around to like take a picture with it before returning it to the guy that caught it? That was cool. And that is something that would never happen in America.
Nope.
Never in a million years would that happen in America. Imagine they did that with like Albert Pujols' 700th home run ball.
Yeah,
Or
no,
like, or
I can never imagine
Judge's
that.
60-second home run.
I just remember I just remember David Freeze's 2011
Yeah.
walk-off home run when it landed in
Hmm.
that berm in center field.
And
And
like 5 people got
yeah,
arrested.
there was that there was that guy who like grabbed it and then I think he immediately got knocked over.
Yeah. Well, also there, I remember when Derek Jeter had his 3,000th hit, that was a home run. Um, like if you watch the replay, there's like 20 people that just like jump on the guy that caught it
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're like that ball is worth like my entire life right now. I need to get that.
Yeah, and even if it did happen in America, like there'd be like a year anniversary later where like they all got honored like pre-game or something because of how noble they were. I feel like that's
Yeah.
maybe just kind of more normal in other
Hmm.
cultures.
If it happened between like 5 people, that'd be impressive in
Yes,
America.
yes, yeah. This just happened like throughout a stadium, but
That
yeah,
was my biggest takeaway is Japan, people in Japan are way nicer.
yeah. Yeah, Team Japan is 4-0. They're pretty crazy. They got Otani, Lars Nootbaar, Masataka
Masataka
Yoshida.
Yoshida,
Um,
um,
is
Roki
it
Sasaki.
is Seiya Suzuki on that team?
I don't believe so. They have
Okay.
Roki Sasaki as a pitcher who was killing it in that game. They have Yu Darvish.
Yep, yep, yeah,
Yeah, they have a fun team for sure. They have the salt and pepper shaker celebration that they've been doing.
yeah. That
I think Lars Nootbaar brought that from the Cardinals to Team Japan.
that's nice. That's nice.
Yeah,
But
I watched I watched USA Mexico last night. What a disaster that was.
oh yeah, I I only
There, it
saw
was cool. I will say, like in our our previews, division previews, we were sad that the NL East went very soon. I'm glad it did, and I got to talk about Joey Meneses before that game because like Joey Meneses would have been too obvious at this point after hitting 2 home runs against Team USA.
yep, yep. Um, so yeah, and yeah, I was only last night I was only able to watch Venezuela, Puerto
Puerto
Rico
Rico, that was a good game
after it
too.
was 7-1 or after it was yeah after it
Yeah,
was 7-1. So I watched a couple innings. I don't know.
that's cool. I'm go well. Hey, as Lacey didn't get to watch Great Britain versus Canada.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
game was it was 3 hours in and in the bottom of the fourth inning. Thankfully, there's a mercy rule in the WBC, so they ended it after seven. It ended up being a 3.5 hour game, which actually isn't that bad, but it was on pace to go for like 5 hours.
yeah. It seemed like the mercy rule was more for the fans and
Yeah.
not for
I
the
will
teams.
say, like as much as I have loved watching the WBC and as much as I will continue to watch as the little later rounds go on, I do really it does show me how much I've enjoyed the rule changes of this year.
Yeah, yeah, because they
Because
don't
it's
have
like
a pitch clock there, right?
they don't have a pitch clock and they don't have shift. Well, the shift band, I'm not really for in the first place, but yeah, like it's most of the pitch clocks, honestly, more than anything
Yeah,
else.
yeah. That's the biggest thing.
Because, I mean, they're not taking away baseball. It's still 9 innings. It's still 27 outs. They're taking away the nothingness in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep,
And
for
you're seeing
sure.
it right unfold right there. Because like I'll admit, like it was tiring seeing postseason games, year after year, day after day. That would be like an hour into the game in the bottom of the second inning in like a 2-0 game.
Yeah, it's just it's more baseball per
And
minute.
exactly,
That's it.
exactly.
Yeah, you get to enjoy your baseball more efficiently.
Yeah, I
Um,
did get to see an automatic strike and an automatic ball in person for the first time. Very fun.
oh yeah, you mentioned
Very,
that to me.
yeah, I don't remember who the batters and pitchers were because it was like the seventh inning of each game, but
Right.
with
Number 75 versus number 89.
no names on the back
Yeah.
of the jerseys. Yeah, but yeah, I did get to witness that. Very
Yeah,
fun. I have nothing else to say. No notes.
that's quite a bit. That's
Hmm.
something to experience. Like it's got to be confusing. I know like, you know, when the intentional walk became automatic, like it took me some
Hmm.
getting used to like whether it was in person or on TV, just randomly a guy would just be on first base. And you'd be
Yeah, it's
like,
like,
wait,
wait, wait a minute.
how did he get there? Like,
Yeah.
why isn't David Ortiz hit yet?
What do you mean
Because
David Ortiz didn't get an at bat with a base open and one out?
yeah. Um, but yeah. So fun things happen
Um,
in the WBC. It'll
yeah, the
probably
Czech
get
Republic team is also very cool.
yeah,
They're all like 18-year-olds with like second jobs as like electricians and stuff.
right, right.
And like one of them like struck out Shohei Ohtani. They beat I believe China it was.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yeah,
Um,
Czech Republic, very cool story. Um, yeah, they didn't make it out of the group stage, but alas, it was very cool for them. Um, the team Venezuela has really been lighting it up. I mean, they've already defeated Team Dominican Republic and Team Puerto Rico. Um, and also in their pool is Israel and Nicaragua, who they still have to play.
yeah, they have a lot of star power. I know the USA and Dominican has rightfully been getting a lot of attention, but I think Venezuela is not far off. And clearly, I mean,
No,
based on the competition, I mean, they're right there with them. And
correct.
I mean, they beat the DR, so obviously above them for now. I'm sure they'll face
Yeah.
off again at some point.
I've also, I'm sure you've all seen, various clips on the internet of people showing emotion in the WBC where it's like Venezuela scored to go up 9-1 and they were all like it was like they had just walked off. I remember Pablo Lopez departed in the fifth inning and like the entire team greeted him at the foul line. And
Yeah,
it's like, it's stuff that you can only see in the WBC because like who's doing that like on a Tuesday night in May against the Reds?
right. I mean, it's
Like
the
that's so
first.
tired. That would be so tired.
I imagine the overwhelming majority of players are representing their country
Yes,
like
and
this
they
for the
probably
first time
care.
ever.
Yeah, and a lot of them probably care more about that than most of what they do for their actual team,
Yeah, for sure. Like with the US, it's different
which is not a
because
bad thing. Yeah.
all these players, for US players, they're playing within their country or their neighbor country for in
Yeah.
one specific instance with the Toronto Blue Jays, but
Right.
it's different. They're on their own sort of. They're in a very comfortable territory. It's their native language every time. Whereas with Team Venezuela, Team Japan, Team Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and literally every other country, you know,
Colombia. Yeah.
Colombia, like this is they're playing with guys who have the same unique perspective as them, which is not the way it is with Major League Baseball. And it's very cool for them. And I know I think Yadier Molina back in 2017 said that the him playing for Puerto Rico, him potentially winning for Puerto Rico is more important than the World Series. And I imagine it's that
Yeah.
way for a lot of these guys.
I mean, it's probably easy for him to say if he's already won a World Series.
Very
Um,
true.
but I remember in 2017, the entire Puerto Rican team dyed their hair blonde, and like Puerto Rico, like the fans set a like Guinness World Record for like highest like popular like highest gathering of people like with blonde hair or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
Because the entire land of Puerto Rico just dyed their hair blonde for the team.
yeah, it was
That's how it
great,
is.
a great thing to get behind. And yeah, what I was saying is like probably at least 90% of these players are doing it for the first time, doing the WBC for the first
Yep.
time. So it's another unique thing for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, switching gears here. Great Britain's uniforms. Do you see those?
Yeah, yeah. I know. I'm sure every joke's been made about them, but it does look like it was
I've
made in
seen I've
Microsoft
seen the
Word.
same tweet from like five different people where it's like that scene from The Office, which I'll be upfront, I've never seen The Office, but
Yeah, me
it's an
too.
Office meme where it's like it's your birthday and it's like a very plain wall. You can judge me for being uncultured. I've never seen it, but I've seen the same tweet at least five times.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it looks like just Arial Black, which is a
Yeah.
fun one. Um I agree. It does look like that. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
weird. Um it looks like they just found out they were going to the WBC like the day before. So that's a fun thing. But yeah, the WBC, it's happening. I know with the pool, whichever pool had Japan, and Korea and Australia. I know that pool, um, that pool ended. That pool started and ended way before everyone else. The USA, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Nicaragua. They're all in progress. Mexico as well. They're all in progress, and they will be continuing to play throughout. And their pool will end a little later than Japan's and what
Yeah,
have you.
pool A and B are done. Pool C and D end on the 15th, 2
Yeah,
days from now, I believe.
they're in progress. But yeah, will be fun to see that continue and be the focus of the baseball world for the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
Our own little fun thing that I think kind of it's getting better each time that the tournament is being played. So that
No
is
doubt.
that's a
Yeah,
cool
no,
thing.
I think it needs to be a more common thing. Like I know it's supposed to be every 4 years. I think it should be every 2.
Yeah,
Why
it would,
not? Why not continue to do this?
yeah, it would be cool. And you know, I think the idea of this was because baseball was out of the Olympics, and I think baseball in the Olympics, it's cool for the amateur guys or the non-MLB guys now. But it's not really going to be a thing, and that's a thing where like there's also other Olympics. There's also some really cool sports that are being focused on at that point. But
Exactly. I don't think people are watching the Olympics for baseball unless they're baseball fans.
right.
Because like when else are you gonna get to watch curling on a national stage?
Yeah, exactly.
I know that those two don't share whatever, but you get the idea.
Yeah, for sure. And like in March, there's no NBA or NHL playoffs yet. Although it's
There
I
is
guess
March Madness, but that's
there's
it.
March Madness, but yeah, I guess there
That's
is
not even an everyday thing though.
true. Yeah,
Like the
there
bracket just got released yesterday. There's no games until Thursday.
yeah, and then they play for 4 days, and then there's like 3 days of no basketball,
Yes.
and then 4 days on. Yeah. So it'll work together simultaneously, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah,
WBC is awesome. It's very cool, and I love it. And we should do it more than every 4 years. That's my note.
yeah. Um so yeah, after we, as we're done talking about WBC for now, um there were a couple extensions handed out, not necessarily guys who are heading into free agency anytime soon, but more situations where guys are getting free agency bought off early in their career, with Keibert,
And all of
Ruiz.
arbitration as well.
Avoid arbitration, which is a cool thing. Probably a sigh of relief for both parties involved. But Keibert, Ruiz, and Corbin Carroll each got 8-year contracts. We'll start with Keibert Ruiz because that happened first.
Yeah, it was 8 years and 50 million, correct?
Yeah, 8 years, $50 million. He unlike Carroll already had a year of service time under his belt, so this buys off 3 years of free agency, um, which is cool for the Nationals, I guess. He's
Yeah.
heading into his age 24 season. What did you think about this deal?
I'm assuming that this is probably going to be pretty front loaded or backloaded rather,
Yeah,
because they are simming 3 years of free agency here. So, that is a lot of time for him to buy off when he could be potentially making a lot more. But that's, of course, a large gamble to make at this point. But not having to worry about arbitration and being set for the next 8 years, especially at this stage of your career where nothing is really guaranteed. It's a huge thing, and it's good for Keibert Ruiz, and it's good for the Nationals because it's a relatively team-friendly deal, I'd say, even with the fact that it's sending arbitration. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very good thing for both sides, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, Ruiz, by the way, I did mention going into his age 24 season, but he was also part of the Trey Turner Max Scherzer trade that sent Scherzer and Turner to the Dodgers, brought Ruiz along with Josiah Gray and a couple other prospects to the Nationals. And yeah, Ruiz is an interesting player. He's a catcher. His catcher defense, it hasn't really developed quite yet. Um, you know, and on the surface offensively, he hit 251 with a 673 OPS. However, I mentioned to Daniel before the episode that this was a guy I probably should have looked into more and potentially had as a player to watch, because he had a lot better expected numbers last year than on the field numbers. And he had 433 plate appearances last year, pretty much a full season. And his expected batting average was 26 points above his actual average. He had an expected batting average in the 91st percentile in all of baseball, also an expected WOBA in the 66th percentile, despite having a below average, WOBA. And along with that, line drive rate of 28.2%, which is, 3.2 percentage points above average pretty much, and sweet spot percentage of 36.3%, which is, a very solid above average sweet spot percentage, avoids ground balls pretty well, or at least more than the average hitter. So, batted ball profile, very good. And also, or I guess the most eye-popping thing I forgot to mention is his strikeout rate. He only has an 11.5% strikeout rate, or
Yeah, that's right.
at least he did last year. And that's his career mark as well. Career 11.5% strikeout rate. That was 97th percentile in all of baseball last year. And his whiff rate, how often he swings and misses, was 94th percentile in all of baseball last year. So there's some upside. His average exit velocity was 33rd percentile, but 88.0 miles per hour. It's only 0.4 miles per hour below league average, and that could grow as he gets more experience and maybe a little more strength as he continues his baseball career. But yeah, so that's the analysis on Ruiz. They buy off 3 years
I think it's also sorry to cut you off, but I think it's also good for Nationals fans to know that there is some sort of stability on this team right now, because over the last half decade, they've seen so many talented players that had been Nationals for a while eventually go elsewhere, between, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner, Max Scherzer, Juan Soto. They saw it with a lot of different players. And I know that Keibert Ruiz isn't maybe the same talent as all the guys I just listed, but I think it is good to know that the team is committing to someone here. And, I think the ceiling for Keibert Ruiz hasn't yet been reached, and it will eventually be reached. But, they get to realize that they're watching their guy. They get to watch someone that is committed to being a National for a while. And I get that the contract they gave him probably won't stop a team from trying to trade for him if that time ever does come. But as of right now, in 2023, they know that they have a guy that they can count on to see long term. And because the only guys that are on the team long term right now are Steven Strasburg and Patrick Corbin, and neither of those contracts have worked out to any degree over the last 4 seasons. So it is good for them to have someone that they know that they can latch on to for a while.
Yeah, that's a really good point you make, because there's not a lot committed, or at least not a lot of high level talent committed for a while, and the Nationals' identity is completely in flux right now. So it's good to just have someone who is growing, who they traded for, be locked up. He's going to be, or he's committed to that contract goes through his age 31 season. So I mean, that's just good to know that that guy could be around, whether it works out or not, we'll see. But, we already see a little bit of upside there. So yeah, it's good, and it's not they're not breaking the bank here. It's $50
No,
million.
and if you're a Nationals fan, you can go and buy that jersey. Like there is a
Yeah,
jersey of a player that you can buy in 2023, that you don't have to worry about being outdated for a while. Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that bought Soto jerseys, that bought, uh, Scherzer jerseys, Harper jerseys, Trey Turner jerseys, and those are no longer good. Like this is
yeah,
one that you can buy in 2023,
yeah,
and
exactly.
it's probably the safest one to buy in 2023 because I don't think anyone wants a Patrick Corbin jersey.
Right. Yeah, and yeah, like it's also a sign that like they're, you mentioned they're committing to something, and it's a sign of like the new Nationals, whatever they may be, like not the current new Nationals that are garbage, but like a new potentially successful Nationals, you know,
Yeah.
years down the line, albeit years down the line, but there's going to be something that
I also think it
will
is
be
just in
there.
general good to have stability at the catcher position because
True.
turnover there can be crazy. And also it's not difficult to eventually be in a situation where your catcher you're not getting a lot of production from. And Keibert Ruiz is a guy that you can get a lot of production from. So it is comforting to have that as well.
Yeah, already a good sign that he was able to get 433 plate appearances in his age 23 season. And offense from the catcher position is a great value to have. So, and based on
And
his
his
expected,
defense is outstanding too.
yeah, and based on his expected numbers, he should be, on that upswing. But yeah, so yeah, Ruiz signed through his age 31 season and through the year, I'm guessing it bought off this year too, so it would be through 2030.
Yeah.
So good for him. A deal that broke the bank a lot more was given out by the Arizona Diamondbacks and given to the number 2 prospect in baseball, according to MLB.com, number 1 in some people's books, Corbin Carroll, outfielder, who already has a little bit of major league time, not enough to have a year of service time yet, but has a little bit of time in the major leagues. Qualifies as a rookie this year. Corbin Carroll gets 8 years, $111 million. What did you think of this signing here?
I think this is just awesome because Corbin Carroll is just the start of what the Diamondbacks are building for the future. I mean, he is the number 1 prospect in the system right now. So it is expected that, he is probably going to be the biggest contributor to their future. But after him comes a pipeline of prospects with Jordan Lawler, with Brandon Thod, with Drew Jones. They have so many people coming through the system, and to commit to the biggest one at a relatively decent price point, considering I know that you are buying out only the arbitration years, but to have him locked up for that amount of time while his value hasn't gone up anymore, that's big because that's going to leave a lot of money on the table for everybody else in that core.
Yeah, well, it is. it Wait, what was it? It was 8 years, 100 million, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're buying off all of arbitration, but you're also buying off uh
Mm.
two 2 years of free agency, which I think,
I think there's a lot of sorry to cut you off, but I think there's a lot of like vesting options in that deal where it could be longer.
yeah, like the Julio
Yeah,
Rodriguez
yeah.
contract. Yeah, because that one was a crazy one where it was like up to, $5 billion with these vesting options. Like,
If he does everything right, he will own the team by the end of this
yeah.
contract.
Yeah, like it was like that. But
I don't think it was that crazy, but I think there were a couple things in there.
yeah, there were some funny things with that one, but it's up to like 14 years, but it could just be 8 years with him.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I think the Corbin Carroll contract could be up to like 11 years if I'm not mistaken.
yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
I believe Passon reported it.
I'm looking at it now. It says there's definitely a club option for there's a club option for a 9th year. And I think there's some vesting options, but how I'm looking at it on Spot Track, You know, it's the normal types of these contracts where there's not that much being doled out the
Okay,
first
yeah.
few years because it's basically simulating pre-arb and arbitration. But
It is just the 9th year vesting option.
but those final uh those final 2 years, he's getting a good chunk of money. He's getting $28.625 million in those final 2 years. So kind of simulates free agency. So I mean, you know, it is 8 years, $111 million, but they are putting a lot of faith in him for sure. If they're willing to give him $28 million over the last 2 of those years. But
Yeah.
given the status, it's not absolutely crazy to do that.
It is a risk to take for a guy that's played 30 major league games. But he has a very unique skill set. I mean, his speed tool is the best that we've seen from a top prospect in a long time. The last time I can remember like a prospect coming up and being like, yeah, look at this guy's speed was Billy Hamilton in 2013. That was the last I remember.
Yeah,
But Corbin
and
Carroll seems to have a much more expansive hit tool, both on the contact side and the power side. He's going to be a center field block for them for a while with Alec Thomas, who's also a center fielder. Yeah, this is going to be a guy to watch in Arizona for sure.
yeah, and Carroll, by the way, like it's not just we're talking about a prospect, but it's not like it's just like, oh, look at the tools. Like in the minor leagues last year, he hit
Yeah.
307, slugged 610, had a 1035 OPS, 22 doubles, 8 triples, 24 home runs, and that was in just 99 games. 31 stolen bases, or not 99 games, 93 games, sorry. 31 stolen bases in those 93 games. That's a stolen base every 3 games. If you put that in a over 162 game sample, I think that's 54 stolen bases, albeit, it is the minor leagues. However, like take note of that. He's a guy that could get 30 stolen bases this year, which is hard to do. It's getting harder to do throughout the years. But like, yeah,
Stealing in general is going to be easier this year, though.
True, yeah, with the shift thing, right?
Yeah, and the bigger bases,
And the pitch clock, yeah.
the pickoff rule too.
Yep, yep, and yeah, so 54 extra base hits in 93 games. So it's not like, oh, he has a lot of stolen bases, but he only hits, he only gets on base 30% of the time, and he only singles when he gets on base. Like, he can actually hit the ball well and hard and hit it over the fence. But when he doesn't hit it over the fence, he can be a danger on the bases.
And not only that, but Arizona's a park where you can't really be a hitter that relies solely on home runs, because it's a very pitcher friendly park. It's a park that keeps the ball in the park a lot more. So if you're shooting the gaps, hitting a lot of doubles and triples like that, you're going to benefit more in Arizona than as a home run hitter.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's definitely known as a hitter's ballpark, but and also along with this great offense that we're talking about, in the scouting report, according to MLB.com, he has a 70 field rating on the 20 to 80 scale. And
That's really good.
In those 30 games that we just talked about, in those 30 major league games, he had 5 outs above average, which is absolutely absurd. Like, if he was on a 162 games pace, he would have led the league in outs above average, most likely, albeit
He
it's
also
hard
led
to
the
keep.
league in sprint speed.
Yeah, led the league in sprint speed.
And the bold leaderboard narrative might be gone this year because of Corbin Carroll.
Yeah, like, with Corbin Carroll, like that. So that's basically, if you don't know Corbin Carroll yet, that's who we're talking about with Corbin Carroll. Is like, there's a reason why the Diamondbacks are investing heavily in him. It's good for them that they're gonna get him through age now 29 or 30. Yeah,
I was gonna say you drafted out of high school, so it can't be that old.
yeah. So like, they're buying off a couple of years of his prime there. Where, yeah, they are, and it's not like he's getting cheaped out either. He's going to be getting $28 million, a little over $28 million in those years that are bought off. So if he doesn't end up working out, that's great money to have. So, $111 million for this guy, but it makes sense for both sides. And yeah, it's bigger picture wise, it's the start of something in Arizona.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like I said, yeah, it's only the beginning. And the fact that they got him for not an outrageous price for now is going to leave room for a lot of other guys.
Yeah, and even just for 2023, like they didn't do that bad last year. They won, I mean, I have it in the prep sheet, but they won
75-ish games.
74 games,
Yeah.
which was a 22 game improvement. There's already MLB level guys that are, very good, like Walker, Christian Walker, Merrill Kelly, Zach Gallen,
Gallen.
already up there. So there's already a good sign. So Carroll's going to improve that immediately this year. Probably the top NL Rookie of the Year candidate if it's not Francisco Alvarez. So he's definitely a guy to look out for. But yeah, Arizona's keeping him around for an extra 2 years. I know the 8-year deal, it gets, sensationalized, but it's an extra 2 years than they would have had originally. But it's nonetheless, it's a good sign.
Absolutely.
Anything more on the deal before we get into the preview?
I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah. All right. Let's preview it up, as they say. So yeah, it starts off, for anyone who hasn't listened to the divisional previews yet, we dive into each team, we dive in bottom to top, we go over additions, subtractions, what they did last year, and then one specific player that you should look out for some unique reason. We're rarely ever going to go with an obvious guy. Guys like, specifically like Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge are way off the table, but even like top 25, 50 players are usually pretty much off the table. Top 25, 50 guys in the MLB are usually off the table here. So we'll start off with the Colorado Rockies. They went 68-94 and finished last in the NL West last year. They lost Jose Iglesias, Carlos Estevez, Connor Joe, Sam Hilliard, and Garrett Hampson. They added Brent Suter, Harold Castro, Nolan Jones, Brad Hand, Pierce Johnson, and Phillips Valdez. Who is your player to watch from Colorado?
Yeah, my player to watch on the Rockies is one of those additions. A guy that I was like, I had to do a double take when I saw they got him. I'm talking about Nolan Jones. He was a top prospect on Cleveland for a couple years. Did pretty well in his first 15 or so career games and then faded out a little bit. Only played like 30 games last year, though, so not the hugest sample size, but still looked very impressive. In 55 batted balls last year, he had a sweet spot percentage of 49.1% and a hard hit rate of 49.1%. Among the 497 hitters with at least 50 batted balls last year, he and Trace Thompson were the only ones to have at least 45% in both sweet spot percent and hard hit rate. Nolan's sweet spot percentage also ranked tied for first on that list of 497. He had the highest sweet spot percentage in all of baseball last year, minimum 50 batted balls. Nolan Jones also had a 32.7% line drive rate, which was the fourth highest on that same list of 497. His arm strength averaged out at 97 miles per hour last year, the third highest among the 414 players to make at least 50 throws last year. And lastly, Nolan Jones was shifted against in 61.3% of his plate appearances last year, a little more than half, and obviously that'll be gone for the most part this year. He had a 229 WOBA against the shift and a 406 WOBA without it. That is a drastic difference. I couldn't believe that they got him just out of nowhere like that. It seemed very weird. I think that he's going to be a guy that thrives in Colorado, especially, with the air being the way it is, because line drive, if you have that high of a line drive rate and you're in Coors Field, you're going to do very well for yourself. So I'm looking at Nolan Jones to have a breakout year, no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a good pick. Yeah, I kind of, that surprised me a little bit too when
Yeah,
when
I had to read the headline twice. So I was like, are we talking about that Nolan Jones, or like do the Guardians have another one in their system?
yeah, like yeah, he like I don't know, dropped a little in the prospect ranks, but yeah, based on that information, it's interesting that he got let go like that. Um, yeah, my player to watch originally was Sean Bouchard, but so yeah, background information on what happened there was I was I was on the flight to San Fran, um, and I paid for the in-flight Wi-Fi because I don't like being bored on the plane, and I didn't really want to watch a movie that the free Wi-Fi would have provided. But so I went, and I hadn't picked out any NL West players yet, so I did some research and picked a guy. And apparently that day, uh, like later on, it was announced that his season was in jeopardy because of a ruptured biceps injury. So I had to find out yesterday. As I did more extensive research that he was not really going to be playing, as because I looked at the roster resource, he wasn't in the lineup, and I was like, what happened? So I had to pick a guy just a couple hours ago, and I just went in with an old familiar guy, a guy I did a how about that on this year. And I will disclaimer, not necessarily a future piece of the Rockies, but an interesting guy nonetheless. And I'm talking about Daniel Bard. I'm sure everyone's sort of familiar with the Daniel Bard story. He was out of baseball for, or at least out of the MLB for 7-8 years, and came back to the Rock. Was able to get an opportunity with the Rockies, and he's been pretty unbelievable even in his late 30s. Daniel Bard in 60 and a third innings pitched last year had a 1.79 ERA, 2.86 FIP, 262 ERA plus, and a 3.8 B WAR. Bard's B WAR was the highest in the MLB among relievers, and it was the highest B WAR by a reliever in his age 37 season or older since Mariano Rivera in 2008, and it was the fifth highest all time by a reliever in his age 37 season or older. Along with that, Bard really turned up the gears from mid-May on. In his final 43 appearances, he had a 1.15 ERA and a 2.60 FIP. Prior to those 43 appearances in 2022, his average launch angle was 20 degrees and his average exit velocity against was 92.5 miles per hour. Those went down to 5 degrees and 85.9 miles per hour in those final 43 plate appearances, or 43 in those final 43 appearances, not plate appearances. His sinker usage went from 39.9% before that span to 55.9% in that span. His ground ball rate went from 43.8% to 53.4%. So he's someone who he was doing okay, but he wasn't doing fantastic. And then he found a way to get a lot more ground balls, and therefore a lot less traffic on the bases and a lot less runs allowed, which is the name of the game. So yeah, he's someone who, I mean, I know he signed like a 2-year extension, so I don't know if he's necessarily a trade target, but he could get traded this year at some point. But someone to look out for potentially on the trade market, but just an entertaining guy to watch and a cool story with Daniel Bard. So
For sure.
that's what I have to say about him. I guess now we get into questions.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a weird question, but I really just use this as an excuse to flex my favorite Rockies stat, maybe of all time. So in 2021, the Rockies had the lowest sinker usage in the major leagues at 6.2%. And they had the third worst average against sinkers at 324 and the third worst slugging at 497. And all this makes sense because there have been studies done about how Coors Field affects pitchers, and a lot of it is that it affects vertical movement. Vertical movement is kind of canceled out by the effects of Coors Field. So it makes sense to limit the usage of sinkers, of curveballs, of pitchers that do that because you're not going to get much of the movement that you want on those. So the Rockies had the lowest usage of sinkers in 2021. They got bad results against them. All this makes sense. How did they respond to this in 2022? They threw the second highest rate of sinkers at 24.4%. They had the second worst average against at 312 and the second worst slugging at 481. Why did the Rockies do this? I don't know. Anyway, over under 20% sinker usage for the Rockies this year.
Good question. I mean, I was talking about how great it worked for Daniel Bard, but he was in the minority clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't think they made any significant additions to the pitching staff outside of I guess Daniel Bard adding more sinker usage, but I'll say under, because I guess also
Yeah,
it's
I
less
would hope
rewarding.
so. I would hope so.
It's also less rewarding to throw the sinker this year. I know we talked
That's
a
true.
lot about the rule changes, but I mean, ground balls are going to get through more this year, obviously, because of the lack of shift. But I mean, that's not the only reason they should lower their sinker usage.
Yeah, I mean, the Rockies are famously like the most behind the eight ball franchise in terms of, advanced metrics and, statistics. And I think there's no greater example of this phenomena than that exactly right there.
Yeah, and I mean,
Hey, this doesn't work. Let's keep doing it more than any other team in the league.
yeah, and to go back, like I know it's an old GM, but was it John Dowd who talked about how
Dano
bad
Dowd?
what
John Dowd. John Dowd was the fake Barry Bonds player in MVP 05 because they didn't have the naming rights to him. Dano Dowd was the Rockies GM.
Dano Dowd, okay. Dano Dowd, who yeah, he said he was
Who's
talking
on
about how
MLB
awesome
Network
batting
now.
average was.
Yeah, which is so funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, there was an article written about bringing back batting average because notoriously it's gone. The batting average doesn't exist. It's a thing of the past.
Yeah, hits and at bats are no longer.
They're not. People don't keep track of that. Actually, there's no leaderboard for it or anything.
No.
Nobody knows who won the batting title last year.
Yeah, who's Luis Ruiz and why is he so special?
Yeah.
I see this guy on Team Venezuela. Why is he there?
Yeah. Anyway, I think the Rockies are funny because they throw the second most sinkers in baseball, even though they know it doesn't work for them, except for Daniel Bard, of course.
Yeah. But so yeah, my question is simple. I couldn't really think of much. I didn't have a very cool stat to present. But who will represent
I've had that one on the I'm sorry, I've had that one on the back burner for months and I've needed an excuse to let it out.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was happy to listen to it.
Yeah.
But who will represent the Rockies at the 2023 All-Star game?
We're assuming they have one all-star.
That's my assumption, yeah.
That's a fair assumption to make. Yeah, you know what? I'll double down and I'll say Nolan Jones. Why not?
Okay.
Let's just
Yeah.
go with it.
Yeah. I guess the other top candidates were, I'd say, Bard and then
Ryan
maybe
McMahon,
Crone.
Ezekiel Tovar,
Yeah.
who we saw play last year.
Maybe Ryan McMahon if you're looking at defense too.
Yeah, which I don't think they are.
It's not the average fan.
I'm not saying he's not all-star worthy, but I don't think anyone's going to be looking at his defense.
No.
On the committee that votes for that.
Yeah. So now we will get into a team that we just talked about. The Arizona Diamondbacks. They went 74-88, as we mentioned, in 2022, and they finished fourth in the NL West. They lost Dalton Varsho, Sergio Alcantara, Caleb Smith, Ian Kennedy, Taylor Widener, and Cooper Hummel. They added Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Gabriel Moreno, Evan Longoria, Andrew Chafin, and Juris Familia. I will start with my player to watch from the Diamondbacks. And this kind of goes against in normal situations, this goes against my way of thinking, I guess, but I'm going with Jake McCarthy for this one.
Yeah. Oh, I see why.
Yeah, he's a 25-year-old outfielder. He's like sort of a Carroll type, except, you know, probably a little less power, and not necessarily the defense either. But he's a 25-year-old outfielder. He hit 283 with a 769 OPS, 118 OPS plus, and 23 stolen bases in 99 games. Another really fast player. On his baseball savant page, all his percentiles are 53rd percentile or below, except for his sprint speed, which is 98th percentile. And I'd say his sprint speed made up for a lot. Jake McCarthy hitting a ground ball isn't as bad as an average player hitting a ground ball. So it's kind of okay that his ground ball rate was 51.8% in 2022. Last year, he hit 302 and slugged 325 on ground balls, and that's largely thanks to his speed. The league average is 241 batting average and 262 slugging, respectively. So he was 60 points above that in both categories. That average and slugging on grounders ranked 29th and 34th, respectively, out of 281 hitters with 200 plus batted balls last year. Those are both in the highest 13% of players. And McCarthy also had a line drive rate near league average. He combined to have 75.1% of his batted balls be ground balls and line drives, which is in the highest 13%. And on those batted balls, he hit 429, which ranks 28th out of 281, which is top 10%. The league average on combined grounders and liners is 378, and he was at 429, 51 points above that league average. Along with that, McCarthy on softer hit balls was better than most players. He hit 333 on batted balls with exit velocities of less than 70 miles per hour. The league average is 219, and he also had a pop-up rate of only 3.2%, which is bottom 12% of those 281 hitters. So I guess my point with McCarthy is, like, it's fine that he's, you know, going with more ground balls, line drives, because, you know, his speed can help with that. Pop-up, you know, him having a low pop-up rate is really good because pop-ups are the only thing where his speed can't help him out. And like high fly balls is the only thing where his speed can't help him out because, you know, the ball's up in the air. You don't have to throw to first to get him out with that. It's going to be caught by a player. So if he's hitting, it's better for him to hit a ground ball than, you know, a high fly ball, because he's, you know, going to be able to get on base more. And, you know, I'm not necessarily worried about, you know, the expected statistics or BABIP with him, because I think his regression is going to be a little less because, I mean, that 98th percentile sprint speed, it's so high, and it's going to help him out so much with ground balls and line drives that, and, you know, he's going to be able to get doubles where a lot of guys get singles and triples where a lot of guys get doubles. So I'm not necessarily worried about those percentiles as much as other players. So, you know, that's why I'm looking at Jake McCarthy.
Sure. So my player to watch is one of the prospects that I mentioned earlier, guy that I think can see some big league time this year. I'm talking about Brandon Pfaadt, who is a right-handed starting pitcher. I just want to set the record straight right now. I had him before Foolish Baseball put him in his video.
Nice.
Just want everyone to, I don't have any proof of this, but you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I promise I did have him before Foolish Baseball put that video out. Anyway, among 241 qualified minor leaguers at all levels last year, Brandon Pfaadt ranked 4th in strikeout minus walk rate at 26.9%. He was top 15 in both K per 9 and walks per 9 at 11.75 and 1.78 respectively. He had the most strikeouts of any minor league pitcher last year at 218. The next most was 186. So he struck out more guys than anybody else throughout all of minor league baseball last year by a wide margin. He did struggle to keep the ball in the park last year. He had a 16.4% home run to fly ball ratio and also a 1.51 home run per 9. But he does pitch in Chase Field this year. And like I mentioned earlier, Chase Field is one of the better ballparks for containing fly balls and keeping them from going over the fence. I think that's something that will benefit Brandon Pfaadt, minimize the home runs given up specifically at home. And if he keeps, I don't expect him to keep that strikeout to walkout strikeout to walk ratio, especially early. But if he can still have something around 3 to 4, that's very good. And I think he's going to be an effective pitcher for the Diamondbacks this year.
Yeah, that is a very high strikeout rate, very low walk rate. Really, yeah, really interesting to see. I should look at how many strikeouts he has for every walk. Yeah, 6.6 strikeout to walk ratio. Like, yeah, definitely someone to look out for. Yeah, that's a good find on your part. And yeah, definitely should be major league ready. I mean, he's 24 right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, will be interesting to look at. And yeah, I mean, outside of Kelly and Gallen on the Diamondbacks, it's not there's still a very developing rotation and team in general, so should get some innings. All right, question time. My question. What is more likely for 2023? Zach Gallen winning Cy Young or Christian Walker leading first base in F4 this year?
I'd say Zach Gallen winning Cy Young pretty comfortably. I think Zach Gallen is a great dark horse Cy Young candidate. He had a 42 and a third inning scoreless streak last year towards the end of the season and was one of the best pitchers in the last couple of months of the season. I can very comfortably say that he's a good candidate regardless. Christian Walker is going to have a lot of competition at first base. He does a very good defense, especially for his position. But I mean, when you're putting him up against like Freddie Freeman and Paul Goldschmidt and Vlad Guerrero Jr., that's a lot. That's really tough for him. So I'm going to say Zach Gallen winning Cy Young.
All right.
My question, I'm going with a very ambitious one. Over under 49.5 stolen bases for Corbin Carroll.
Well, so my gut's definitely under, but I understand that stolen bases, as we talked about, when we were talking about his extension, stolen bases should be a little easier. Pick up, the pickoff rule, like it or not, it's gonna play an effect on that. Pitch clock as well, like, it's gonna be interesting, especially if it goes down. Like, I wonder if runners are going to be more cautious or more aggressive, because you could have 1 second left on the pitch clock and they could try to pick you off like right at the buzzer. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, he's going to start the year. I mean, obviously no reason to manipulate service time now, given his extension, but he's going to start the year in Arizona. And yeah, I'll still say under, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets to 50. But
yeah,
hey, that's a challenge, Corbin, if you're listening. But yeah, I'll say under 50 for now. All right. So now that leads into the San Francisco Giants. I was just at Oracle Park.
Yeah, you were.
I was on the way. I didn't go on its own. I'm not I wasn't that hardcore, but it was on the way to the Chase Center, where the Warriors play. Got to see some basketball action. First full NBA game I've watched this year. So good to do that.
One more than me.
Yep. But yeah, they had a really interesting offseason. The Giants did. But last year they went 81 and 81, finished third in the NL West. They lost Carlos Rodon, most notably. They lost also Evan Longoria, Brandon Belt, and Yarlene Garcia. They added Ross Stripling, Mitch Haniger, Michael Conforto, Taylor Rogers, Sean Manaea, and Roberto Perez. Who are you looking at with these Giants?
Yeah, I am once again going with one of the additions they got. I'm looking at Sean Manaea, a guy that I think can be really interesting. The San Francisco Giants have a very good recent history of taking pitchers that hadn't been performing up to their potential and getting all of it out of them. We saw with Kevin Gausman in 2020 to 21. We saw with Carlos Rodon last year. It was the first season where he was able to stay healthy and have an ace type season. And I think Sean Manaea has that same potential. He went to, so Chris, are you aware of Driveline Baseball?
Yes.
So Sean Manaea, for those of you that don't know, Driveline Baseball is a sort of like a player development lab that's located in Arizona that a lot of major league, college, and high school, like top high school baseball players, both pitchers and hitters, go to work on mechanics, to work on, pitch repertoire, and people have seen some stunning results, upticks in velocity, higher spin rates naturally, bat speed if you're a hitter. And there's a lot of positive results that have come out of it. Well, Sean Manaea went to Driveline this offseason, and according to some reporters, he's been experiencing an uptick in velocity in spring training. I don't know if there's a ton of Statcast data about it, but that's from what I've heard. He's throwing the hardest that he's thrown in his career in some instances. He threw his sinker 60% of the time last year and ended the year with a 38.7% ground ball rate. That's not good. That's not why you throw a sinker. He hasn't been throwing it for the right purpose, and he threw it 60% of the time last year. 10.9% of his sinkers found themselves in the bottom third of the strike zone. That's the fifth lowest rate among the 128 pitchers that threw at least 300 sinkers. 23.8% of his sinkers were in game day zone 12, which is high above the strike zone and on the outside to right-handed hitters. So just about a quarter of his sinkers were out of the strike zone at a very specific point. That is the second highest. 23.8% is the second highest rate among the 452 seasons that any pitchers had since 2012, in which they threw 750 sinkers. That's the second highest rate. The third highest rate on that list is Sean Manaea in 2021. The fifth highest rate is Sean Manaea in 2017. So it's a problem that he's had for a while, where he's had trouble locating his sinkers specifically in that part of the zone. I think the Giants can fix him. I think it's very possible. They've done it before. Sean Manaea is a guy that has the talent to where we could see more potential out of him come out with the Giants.
Yeah, and the Giants, I know this goes back to 2021, but I know they had from 2020 to 2021, they had a crazy increase in team ground ball rate. Like,
yep.
It was in June of 2021, but I think throughout the year, like 2020, I think their ground ball rate was 28th, or maybe even dead last. And then in 2021, it was like top 3. And I can't imagine it fell off too much last year.
It was like 5th last year or something like that.
Yeah, especially with Logan Webb, getting a lot of innings last year. But I think they've developed into a club that garners a lot more ground balls than they used to. So I imagine they have some data analysts and really smart people trying to help out Sean Manaea right now.
I think something that you're going to hear a lot of this season and over the next couple years, months is, oh yeah, he went to Driveline.
Yeah. I mean, it's been growing more notoriety. It's been kind of going on for a decade, and they're a very interesting lab. I imagine they probably have multiple locations at this point, but
they have to. I know that there's one in Arizona that Manaea went to.
Yeah, like it's they kind of started that weighted ball and plyometric ball movement, and they're very advanced, always searching for more. I know, like, just as an amateur guy, me just as a high school pitcher, I looked at that and looked at what they were doing, and pitchers especially are helped by them. I know they do a lot with hitters, but pitchers especially.
I think they're doing a lot more with hitters now recently. I think that's a lot of why it's becoming more of a known thing. It's like, I think Mookie Betts went there, and like he's improving his bat speed. Bat speed is something that's starting to be tracked now. It was in 2 ballparks last year. I think it's very possible that I think it's a way that hitters can start catching up with pitchers, because I think it's pretty clear that pitchers have generally had the upper hand over the last few years overall.
Yeah, and guess who led all teams in ground ball rate last year? The Giants.
It was the Giants.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess a large portion of that is Webb and Cobb. I remembered Alex
absolutely.
Cobb too.
Alex Wood too.
Alex Wood. Yep. So yeah, now moving to my player to watch. Not a pitcher, but
We
it
have
is
2 minutes. We have 2.5 minutes left. Do you want to go through, or do you want to end?
I think I could wrap this before my
All right, let's
question.
do it. 2
Um,
minutes, 30 seconds on the clock.
all right. I honestly don't have too much on him either, but I'm talking about JD Davis. Shout out to my 2020 Mets player to watch, JD
I think he
Davis.
was my 2020 Mets player to watch as well.
Yeah, we matched on that.
Yeah.
But a lot has happened since then. And after getting traded to San Francisco last year in 49 games with the Giants in 2022, he hit 263 with an 857 OPS. Overall, even with his Mets games, his average exit velocity last year was 95th percentile. Hard hit rate was 99th percentile. Expected WOBA was 89th percentile. Expected slugging was 87th percentile, and barrel rate was 97th percentile. He also had an above average sweet spot rate of 34.8%. Out of 334 hitters with 150 plus batted balls in 2022, Davis's barrel rate ranked 10th. And he is also due for some progression, as he was 22nd unluckiest out of 334 hitters in expected slugging last year. He was top 7% in top 7% unluckiest in expected slugging percentage, and 87th percentile in expected slugging percentage overall. So JD Davis, I know he's projected as a bench player on the Giants, but he is certainly someone to look out for, especially with how the direction he hits the ball and how hard he's been hitting the ball. His problem is strikeout rate, so we'll see about that, but he is someone to look out for sure. All right, and now we move on to questions for the San Francisco Giants. What do you got for me?
So for my Giants question, I had a fun one. Who has the higher F4, Taylor Rogers or Tyler Rogers?
That's a good one.
Yeah, they are identical twins and their teammates this year.
Yeah, I'm gonna say a super corny thing. They're identical brothers, but their pitching styles are far from identical.
Yeah,
They're because Tyler Rogers is a very ground ball heavy.
they
I don't
also
think he
throw with
gets.
different arms,
Yeah, they throw with different arms and they throw from
which is
different
weird.
angles.
Mhm.
Tyler Rogers is a submariner. Taylor's I think overhand or 3/4.
A little more of a sidearm, but yeah.
And Tyler, I don't think Tyler gets crazy amount of strikeouts, does he? I should double check on that.
No, he doesn't.
Um,
But he doesn't give up a lot of home runs, and Taylor did last year.
yeah.
And keep in mind, I'm talking about F4.
I'd say Taylor Rogers is a little bit due for a bounce back, so I'll say Taylor.
All right.
Taylor with an A. Taylor. All right, so my question might be a little impacted by some news that happened over the past week or so. But I don't think the injury should be too crazy, but there is an injury. Yeah. Which outfield acquisition will make a bigger impact in 2023, Mitch Haniger or Michael Conforto?
No. Yeah, I did notice Haniger was hurt. Both guys have been very injury prone in the past, which makes me nervous. Honestly, it feels like the real question is, who do I have more faith in to stay healthy?
Yeah.
Because I think they're both pretty equal, like they're both capable of like pretty equal contribution. This is a tough one. This is a really tough one. I'm gonna go with Mitch Haniger just because it's been a couple of years since Michael Conforto has played in the majors, and I'm sure there'll be some sort of period where he's still warming back up to major league pitching.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Mitch Haniger. I feel like it's a more safe pick.
Yep. That makes sense. All right, now we will move on to the Padres, who obviously making a lot of headlines. But I am realizing like a lot of their big signings have just been guys on their team. Although they obviously made a really big one, who was not on their team before. But the Padres last year went 89-73, and they finished second in the NL West. They got the number 5 seed in the National League playoffs. They beat the Mets in the wild card round, beat the Dodgers in the NLDS, and eventually lost to the Phillies in the NLCS. The Padres lost Josh Bell, Brandon Drury, Jurickson Profar, who I think is still out there, which is weird because, I mean,
He is.
he had a pretty good season last year. I understand why the Padres don't need him right now, but I think if you're another MLB team, you should go out and try to get him. But they lost Bell, Drury, Profar, Will Myers, Mike Clevenger, Sean Manaea, Jorge Alfaro, and Pierce Johnson. They added Xander Bogaerts, Matt Carpenter, Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha, Nelson Cruz, and Adam Engel. So I'll start with my Padres player to watch. So the leader for the Padres in B-War last year was Manny Machado, who was an MVP finalist. But in second place was Ha-Sung Kim. Ha-Sung Kim, I'm not saying he's as good as B-War says it is, because, I mean, B-War averages defense
largely
a lot.
impacted by defense, yeah.
However, nonetheless, he's really, really valuable, and more valuable than I think a lot of people recognize. Kim is a 27-year-old infielder. He played 131 games at shortstop last year and had 10 defensive runs saved and 8 outs above average at the position. He also had a 107 OPS plus, stole 12 bases, which allowed him to have 5.0 B-WAR and 3.7 F-WAR. Kim was one of 6 players last year to accumulate 12 plus fielding runs, 6 plus batting runs, and 2 plus base running runs. The other 5 were Stephen Kwan, Dalton Varsho, Andres Jimenez, Kyle Tucker, and Mookie Betts. So Kim, obviously he's not going to get as much time at shortstop this year because A, Bogaerts was signed, and B, if Bogaerts isn't playing short, it'll probably be Tatis when he comes back after he serves his 20 games. But he is the projected starting second baseman right now, with Machado at shortstop, Bogaerts at short, and Cronenworth at first base. And in just 148 career innings at second base, Kim has 5 defensive runs saved and 2 outs above average. 148 career innings, that's only, like 16, 17 full games if you judge it by that. And Kim still managed to get 5 defensive runs saved and 2 outs above average in that short time at the second base position. So he, he's very valuable, has great value on defense, and was an above average hitter and a good base runner last year. So someone to keep track of for sure. And someone who should be recognized. Who is your player to watch?
My player to watch, I am doubling down on the player that I had on this team last year because they worked out very well for me, so I'm going to try it again. I'm going with our favorite name in baseball, Luis Garcia.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I'm talking about the reliever for the Padres, the one who's going into his age 36 season.
Yep.
He is tied for 20th among all relievers in F-WAR since the start of the 2021 season. From 2021 to 2022, his ground ball rate went up by 8%, and his fly ball rate dropped by 11%. It went from 27% to 16%, which is outstanding. At age 35 last year, his sinker averaged out at 98.7 miles per hour, the 4th fastest among the 197 pitchers to throw at least 200 sinkers, which, by the way, he threw 512, so it's not a cherry pick by any means. However, the pitch that really impressed was his slider, his second most used pitch. Among the 1,214 pitches across Major League Baseball to have 50 plate appearances and against them, Luis Garcia's slider had the lowest average against at 0.50, the 11th lowest slugging percentage against at 150, the second lowest WOBA against at 120, the fourth highest whiff percent at 57.1%, the 4th highest strikeout rate at 62.5%, the 18th highest put away percent at 33.9%, the lowest expected batting average at 0.41, the second lowest was 0.65, so he was 25 points ahead there. The second lowest expected slugging at 0.87, and the lowest expected WOBA against at 0.095. His expected WOBA was not even at 100 on his slider. It was one of the best pitches in baseball last season. It had 64 plate appearances against it, and it was outstanding. So that is Luis Garcia.
Yeah, yeah, he's yeah, he really impressed in that Padres bullpen last year. Yeah, he I think it was like with the Cardinals, he wasn't necessarily as good, and now he's really pumping it up, throws really hard, obviously. So yeah, now it is on to questions. So I don't know. This might be a stupid question. I don't know what it is, but what will there be more of? Fernando Tatis Jr. hits or Juan Soto walks?
I'm gonna go Juan Soto walks.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean the 20 games definitely plays a bit of a factor, and maybe not too much of a factor, but yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah, for context, I think Tatis in 2021, despite his great season, only had 135 hits, and I think that's the amount of walks Soto had last year. Or it was either that or I think it was 135 last year. Just shows you how much Juan Soto walks. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My question is it. My question also involves Juan Soto. It's definitely not a statistical based question. It's kind of a bit built into the narrative the Padres have built themselves into the last in the last couple months. Will Juan Soto have an extension by the end of the year?
By the end of the year,
you can take that to mean by the end of 2023 or by the end of the season. You can go whichever way you want with that.
I'll say I'll keep it to end of 2023, and I'll say no, because this is a guy who rejected $500 million. I think he's going to be really tough in negotiations. And I don't think he's going to get one this spring training, because I think
he's definitely not getting one spring.
I think he knows, well, especially with the World Baseball Classic, there's not going to be negotiating time, but I think he knows that he's coming off, a Soto, his version of a down year, and I think any MLB team would try to pay him based off of that. So he knows that he wants to get his money after, a season where he lives up to his full potential, like a 2021 type season where, he was a runner-up in MVP and potentially should have won that MVP after, a 7-win season. So I think he's gonna wait. He's gonna wait a little more. I know he has he's a free agent after 24,
2024, right?
Yeah. So next year will be his walk year, but I don't think he'll get an extension by the end of the calendar year. I'll go ahead and say that.
All right.
And could be wrong. I mean, the Padres have gotten some deals done that I would not have expected them to do. So
I'd say the only reason I really put this as a question is that I've learned that you really cannot doubt the Padres.
Yeah,
it's really money.
It's really whatever, unstoppable force versus immovable object here.
Just as you think, okay, they have to be done now, right? They'll just throw out another one.
Yeah, I just
they signed Yu Darvish. It's like, oh no, now they can't afford Manny Machado, and they're like, what are you talking about? We literally just gave him a $360 million contract.
Yeah, it's really just two forces.
And it wouldn't be surprising if it's like, okay, well now that they signed Machado, they definitely can't afford Soto, and then they're like, actually, we just paid him $700 million.
Yeah, Soto's like, I want 18 years. The Padres will be like, how about 19?
Like, how about 20, actually?
Yeah.
You're still like 16, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So
he's going into what, age 24?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's doing that. That's crazy.
That's awesome.
One of my favorite foolish baseball tweets was like, when I can't wait till Juan Soto gets to Adley Rutschman's age.
Yeah. Like before he played in the majors.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, the Padres, this isn't me dissing the Padres. I just think that Juan Soto and his team are really tough. based on what we've heard about contract negotiations the past year. All right, now we move on to the Dodgers, who last year went 111-51 and won the National League West, but lost to the Padres in the NLDS. Over the offseason, lost a good amount, lost Trey Turner, Tyler Anderson, Justin Turner, Cody Bellinger, Craig Kimbrell, Andrew Heaney, Chris Martin, David Price, Joey Gallo, Tommy Kahnle, and Hanser Alberto. They lost all those guys, and they added Noah Syndergaard, JD Martinez, David Peralta, and Jason Hayward. Who's your player to watch on Los Angeles Dodgers?
So for the second time this episode, I'm going with a guy that has never played in the majors. I'm going with Gavin Stone. He is a pitching prospect for the Dodgers, just entered the top 100 this year for the first time. He was the second to last pick in the 2020 MLB drafts. That was, of course, was only a 5-round draft, but he was dangerously close to going undrafted. He was actually picked 10 spots after Brandon Pfaadt, my Arizona Diamondbacks player to watch. Among the 311 pitchers across all minor leagues to throw 100 innings pitched last year, he had the lowest ERA. He had a 1.48 ERA in 121 2/3 innings pitched. That's crazy. He also had the second lowest FIP at 244. By the way, he pitched 25 innings in high A ball, 73 1/3 innings in Double A, and 23 1/3 innings in Triple A. And he also had the lowest home runs per 9 last year out of the 311 pitchers at 0.22. His ERA at every level last year was 144 in high A, 160 in Double A, and 116 in Triple A. And his FIPS at every respective level were 260, 224, and 287. I think the biggest question mark for the Dodgers this year is their rotation depth. You have Kershaw, you have Dustin May, you have Noah Syndergaard, who is kind of a question mark. You probably don't have Walker Buehler this year. I feel like you have Julio Urias in a walk year. You have maybe Ryan Pepio trying to come out as a prospect. I think Gavin Stone's a guy that could get some playing time this year and definitely would be a guy to watch.
Yeah. The starting pitching with the Dodgers is like after losing Tyler Anderson and having some injury trouble with some of the guys on the roster. You could definitely see some younger guys stepping up. Especially, Walker Buehler, he's pretty much out the whole year with his elbow surgery.
It is crazy that 2 years after they had like 5 combined Cy Young awards in their rotation that we're now at this point.
Yeah.
Actually, I think they had more than that. They had Kershaw. Well, I guess they never had Scherzer and Bauer at the same time, but you get the idea.
Yeah, Scherzer, Bauer, Price, Kershaw, Buehler.
Also Buehler, also Urias, also May.
Yeah. It's weird.
And now this is where we're at. But nonetheless, Gavin Stone, I think, is a very fun guy. It should be an under the radar pick on a very highly touted and well covered team.
Yeah, their rotation will get better when they get Ohtani. But
yeah, exactly.
It's weird.
Yeah, it's they'll have. And we're talking about that now. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, come 2024, they're going to have Shohei Ohtani. They're going to have signed him.
The Dodgers Mets bidding war is already being talked about. I don't know.
Oh my
God,
it's gonna be legendary.
I wish like it was like 2000, I don't know, 15 or 2007 again, where the Red Sox were in on top free agents.
Yeah. It'd be very funny if the Pirates actually were like, actually, we haven't spent for the last 20 years because we've been saving up for Shohei Ohtani. Like when he was born, we were like, okay, this guy.
Yeah. We're going to be like the Angels. We're going to have Shohei Ohtani and win 75 games.
Yeah. That would be really funny.
It's like, oh, what would the Angels be like without Shohei Ohtani? Oh, they'd be like the Pirates.
They'd be like the Pirates. They just swap records.
Yeah. All right, my player to watch with the Dodgers. It's another example where I'm going with a reliever who I had as a how about that last year. I'm talking about, so I guess the context of this, Craig Kimbrell, he went to the Phillies this year. Last year, the Dodgers lost Kenley Jansen. So, there's obviously people are wondering who's going to take that ninth inning role. And it's most likely going to be Evan Phillips, who is one of the best relievers in baseball last year. He's heading into his age 29 season, coming off a year with 63 innings pitched, a 1.14 ERA, 1.94 FIP, and 2.18 expected ERA. In his final 47 regular season appearances, which go back to May 29th, he threw 45 innings and allowed 2 earned runs for a 0.40 ERA. It was the first time since 2018 that a pitcher had a 47-game span with 45-plus innings and an ERA below 0.5.
Had to be Blake Trinan, right?
Blake Trinan was one of them, but Ryan Presley was also in that group. Yeah. Wow. Shout out to him. So he also had a 1.54 FIP in that span, along with a 85.0 mile per hour average exit velocity against and a 3.1% barrel rate against, as well as a 27.8% sweet spot rate against, which are all far below average in what you want as a pitcher. Phillips, out of 162 qualified relievers from May 29th on, Phillips's ERA was the lowest, and his FIP was 5th lowest out of 162. And out of 509 pitchers with 50-plus batted balls against in that 47-game span for Phillips, his expected WOBA against ranked 8th lowest. Also, out of those 509 pitchers, his average exit velocity ranked 36th lowest, which is top 8%, and barrel rate against ranked 21st lowest, which was top 5%. And this was along with a 27% strikeout minus walk rate, which is 13 percentage points above average. It's elite. So along with the 27% strikeout minus walk rate, he was allowing very soft contact and nothing really and not a lot in that sweet spot zone where a lot of hits are happening. And so with Phillips, you got to wonder what his arsenal is. And he used what is now known as the sweeper, which is a variation of a slider. Yeah, it's what I read on it. It's a variation of a slider. It apparently has a little more horizontal movement than a slider. And it was used 44.2.
It's like an advanced slider.
Yeah. It's a slider 2.0.
Supposed to have horizontal movements.
Yep. It's Slider 2.0. It's better than the last one.
It's the streaming service. It's Slider Plus.
Yeah. You have to pay.
Speaking of which, I'm sorry to interrupt your segment here, but did you see that they added like pitch modeling statistics to Fangraphs?
No, I haven't, but I'll definitely look into it.
It's like Stuff Plus, Command Plus, all that. I'm sure you've heard of those metrics before, but they're on Fangraphs now, and it's very cool.
Oh yeah. Stuff Plus. I think I heard about that. But yeah, like Phillips has Slider Plus. He has to pay $5.99 a month to use his sweeper. But anyway, so Phillips is using the sweeper, and he used it 44.2% of the time last year, which was third most out of 378 pitchers to throw 750 plus pitches last year. In that 47-game span to end the season, his sweeper had a 145 batting average and a 161 slugging against it. It was the lowest slugging on a sweeper in that span among the 18 pitchers with 150 plus sweepers in that span. He also had a 44.1% whiff rate against that sweeper in his final 47 games. So Phillips, he was an unbelievable reliever last year. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily expect him to have a 1.14 ERA again. However, he proved to be extremely reliable last year. I imagine the Dodgers had a good deal of developing him, and I imagine he gets some ninth inning time and maybe is one of the best closers in baseball this year. Who knows? Now on to questions.
Yes, I feel like this is a bit of a lame question considering the talent on the Dodgers that I'm focusing on these players, but who has a better chance of achieving a 100 weighted runs created plus, Miguel Rojas or Jason Hayward?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I mean, I know Rojas is far below, and Hayward hasn't been good on offense in a while, I think. It's not it's rate specific, so it doesn't really matter who gets the sample sizes.
Exactly.
Um, the better chance. I mean, it's
I
weird
guess
because I
it could also, yeah. I guess it could also just be who has the higher
yeah,
thing.
because yeah, I don't see either
I don't see
getting
either
there.
of them with a chance.
I say Rojas because I mean, I don't know. I think he might be a little younger than Hayward, or I could be
Probably.
wrong on that. I think they're both around
Yeah, I
34.
mean, Hayward was very young when he debuted, but it was in 2010.
Yeah. So I'll say Rojas. I don't know. Um, no specific reason, no deep dive on analysis. However, Hayward did have, I think he had a weird stretch in the most recent year in recent years where he like was actually pretty good offensively, but he
Yeah.
fell off at some point. Um, my question, Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts were fourth and fifth in the MVP last year. Who finishes higher in the vote this year if they do get in that vote?
Hmm. Between Mookie and Freddie Freeman. I'm gonna say Mookie. Um, I think that he did have some. I could be completely wrong on this, but I feel like he had some BABIP misfortune last year. I'm probably saying that because I had him in my on my F4 team last year. Uh, although Mookie hits like the least fly balls in the league, he had like a 35% ground ball rate last year. So the shift probably won't help him, but I don't know. His defense is still stellar. I'll just go with Mookie.
Um,
That is tough though.
272 BABIP.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean that could be higher.
his career BABIP is 304.
Yeah, but also his ground ball rate probably went way down, or was way down. It's definitely at a lower point than it's been at through most of his career because he had like I think one of the lowest ones in the league last year.
Yeah, interesting. Um, all right. So yeah, that'll do it
That will do it.
for NL West previews. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. And yeah, it's first time we've been on video in a while, as we are remote right now. So got that going for us. And if you're watching on YouTube and want to go to the Apple Podcasts and Spotify streams and subscribe to those are called Above Replacement Radio as well. And if you want to follow us on social media, follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow me on Instagram at Chris Gianta. You can see a nice. I was with Willie Mays,
Yes,
not
you were.
not actual Willie
You
Mays, but
you
his
talked about the
statue.
show in your caption.
I did mention the old name,
Yeah.
STBNL episode
If I would
36
say
part
if you were
1.
with Willie Mays, that would have been the lead story in this show. We wouldn't have talked. We wouldn't have done previews.
No,
We would
no.
have done an hour and a half on Chris met Willie Mays.
Yeah, that would be amazing if I could have if I could
Yeah.
have done that. But no, I was with his statue, showing appreciation. But anyway, go follow those accounts.
I could really talk. I could really see you having talked to the rest of the group about how all those times he should have won MVP.
Yeah. Well, one of the people, not familiar with baseball asked who Willie Mays was, and I said like fourth in home runs, or yeah, fifth in home runs now.
Not fourth. I think he was like sixth or seventh because it goes Bonds, Aaron, Ruth, Pujols, A-Rod,
And then
Mays.
Mays
Mays sixth.
sixth. So I lied.
Because he had 660.
Yeah.
I'm trying to
So
think because Jim Thome had 600, but he didn't get to 660. Ken Griffey Jr. had 630. Yeah, no, Mays was sixth.
So yeah, I lied there. But yeah, I wanted to go into accolades, but I couldn't even say, I didn't want to say two-time MVP because that doesn't represent him well,
No,
he has the same amount of MVPs as Juan Gonzalez.
that's true. That's so
He
sad.
should have like he should have at least 4. But yeah, I should have
Yeah.
gone into Maury Wills and why May should have won that 1962 MVP. But yeah, go follow at Cristiante on Instagram to see that photo with me in the statue.
Yeah.
And follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran. And yeah, if you want to follow the show on Instagram, follow at Above Replacement Radio on Instagram. And yeah, that does it. And we hope to see you next week, where we will be talking the final division. If you haven't done process of elimination yet, we will be talking the AL East,
Yes, sir.
featuring a lot of playoff and World Series contenders. So we will see you then.
This conversation is over.